Welcome to episode 3 of TBWP 21. We hope that each of you had the opportunity to utilize the information in the August Wellness Magazine to magnify your physical wellness last month. This month, we are excited to explore information geared toward mental and emotional wellness. We know that now, more than ever, a focus on our mental and emotional wellness is a necessity. Changes that have taken place in everyday life have been taxing on everyone. However, those working in the front lines, like our TBWP employees, have had to endure a greater amount of change and stress. So during this episode, we will be addressing workplace culture and stress management, along with mindfulness and positive affirmation. Now let's turn the time over to Landon Taylor, our Regional Skill Director, to discuss TBWP workplace culture.
So one of the first things we have to look at when defining culture with TBWP Health Services is looking at our mission statement. Our mission statement is huge. I love it so much. It's about finding joy in the journey. For me, that was a cool thing to come into with this company, this organization, and find that that was the culture. It was really cool to be a part of that and live it and breathe it. And that's one of the things we talk about huge during our orientation process, is looking at how do you find joy in your journey. We ask new employees, what brings you joy? It doesn't matter if that individual is in housekeeping, nursing, maintenance. We want to see what brings them joy. And those answers vary from person to person. We see a lot of answers from, I enjoy taking care of people. I enjoy making people smile. That what you find joy in will vary from person to person, but you need to ask yourself that very question. What brings me joy in coming to work? And if you can't find that answer, allow us to help you find that answer, and starting with those little things of serving other people. So ask yourself that question. What brings you joy? The thing we have to our benefit is a lot of our values within the company. We have service, loyalty, compassion, and those are a few that I always focus on as I work with people, is compassion and service. Because that, if innately, if you're serving people, if you have compassion towards other people, you're going to have joy. It's forced upon you almost. I look at examples of some of my staff who've taken time to do those little things. They're not monumental, taking residents out to concerts and do these fun things. It's finding what their favorite candy bar is, and they bring them that Milky Way for that next shift they work. That's what helps bring them joy, and helps at that point carry over to our residents and helping them find joy as well. We have to remind ourselves that as we work with people, they're in a tough spot. They've just had surgery. They're feeling that pain. They're feeling that emotional heartache, especially times right now with COVID going on. We have to remind ourselves they need that extra love and attention from us and bringing joy to their life. So one of the big things with culture and looking at the overall feeling of a building is looking at how people interact with each other, the emotions in the building, the buy-in to the very culture, the joy and all that. One of the things can be the biggest deterrent of that is that one bad seed or negative gossip, things like that. We want to avoid having a bad seed. We want to avoid having gossip throughout the building, because that can tear a building down so incredibly fast. Because it messes with that culture, it messes with that teamwork and the relationships. Again, gossip can be something that is a direct act or indirect. That direct gossip is when someone goes in there and, did you hear about Susie? She did this or that. And we want to avoid doing that direct gossip, because all it does is it creates tension, creates that negative vibe throughout our building. We don't want that. We want to have that good positive feeling as we're interacting with people. We don't want to think, if someone's talking about me, why are they talking about me? We want to have a good quality relationship with all employees we work with. One of those indirect gossip situations is when you might be talking about a frustration you might have. You're not trying to be directly rude or mean about someone, but you're just talking about them in potentially a negative context. That's indirect gossip. You want to take that and move it out of the way just as much as direct gossip, because it can cause the same amount of damage. So when you go to talk about people, again, if you have a concern or a problem or a frustration, go and address it with that individual. And then all other forms of gossip, just don't do it. Be positive. Help build each other up. Find those excuses to talk good about each other, because it's too easy to fall into those traps of gossip and all the good deeds of what happened last Saturday night. So for us, we focus on the positive, we focus on the joy, and go back to that every single time. When in doubt, there's going to be a conflict at some point or another in your life. That's life. Whether it be at home, at work, at school, you're going to run into people that you may not necessarily get along with, and that is perfectly okay. No one expects everyone to get along 100%. At the same time, we all have the same goal in mind. We all want to take care of our residents. And so that goes back to our finding joy in our journey. But at the end of the day, if we show up and we get to work and something just irks us that day about another employee, it's something we have to resolve. Otherwise, we let that sit and it festers and it's no good for anyone. So one of the big things we focus on is addressing the problem when it happens, not letting it sit there. If you have an issue with a coworker or supervisor, take that issue up with them immediately, no matter how big or small. And that can be difficult. I understand that it's not in our nature to go approach someone with a problem. It's hard to do. But at the same time, it's normal. People talk to each other about problems they have, and it doesn't make them your worst enemy. It makes them, hey, I have a problem with this. And oftentimes it's a failure to communicate appropriately, and that happens. I've had plenty of experiences where I've mentioned to an employee, hey, I need to see you in my office in 10 minutes. And they get all worked up thinking they're getting into trouble, and so they're telling everyone else, hey, I'm getting into trouble because I'm going to Landon's office, and that's okay. When we get in, we talk about it's a performance review, they did great. And they leave the office thinking, we're okay. So I guess the take-home message I would leave with everyone today would be, we spend a lot of time with our coworkers. We are with them more than oftentimes with our own families. So take that time to get to know your coworkers. Be invested and encourage each other to get better professionally, personally. Establish those relationships of trust. If we do those things, we're going to find that joy in ourselves. We're going to find that joy to be able to share with others as well, from our coworkers to our residents, because that's our goal. We want to find that joy in our journey.
Thank you, Landon. It is always wonderful to be reminded of the joy that Tannabelle promotes in the workplace. I challenge the staff at each facility to work together to find new ways to maximize the joy in your buildings. Now let's join Kelly and her special guest to learn more about what we can do to manage our stress.
I'd like to introduce everybody to Cassie Snell. She has just finished the master's program in social work at ISU.
Mm-hmm.
And she has been, I've known Cassie because when I first was hired by Tannabelle, she worked at Quinn Meadows, and then shortly after that she went over to Heritage Home Health and Hospice, and she works with patients and their families as they go through the dying process. And so we're really glad to have Cassie here with us and to share. We want to talk about stress in caregiving and all that go along with that. So she's going to help us with that. So what are some common causes of stress in the workplace?
So I think a lot of times especially in healthcare settings, that we just sometimes feel like we can't ever do enough. We have the demands of our job, the demands of the regulations, the demands of the patients, and we're just always feeling like there's more to be done. And I think that causes stress, and it can make you feel overwhelmed and hopeless sometimes. And so that causes stress in the workplace. Also, I think in healthcare specifically, we're dealing with a lot of grief and loss. You deal with the grief and loss of your patients. Sometimes people pass away or go through difficult things, and so you're dealing with that as well. And so you're trying to do as much as you can to help everybody, and sometimes feeling like you can't do enough.
Do you think that grief and stress bleeds into your home life too? When work is super stressful, you think that you take that stress home with you?
Oh, absolutely. I think that we do that a lot. And even with myself, I notice that if I'm stressed at work, home seems more stressful, and we're so busy at home and have so many things going on at home and work, and just never feeling like we can decompress because we're just going all the time.
So we talk a lot in our wellness program about the benefits of getting enough sleep, eating right, and exercising. Do those also help with stress when we do those types of things?
Oh yeah, and I think we realize that those things are going to help with stress over the long term, right? Because if we have healthy habits, our body just will be able to cope better with the stressful situations that we're in.
Mm-hmm. How do we make ourselves actually do that?
That's the $1 million question, right? I think that we all know, ask anybody on the street, and we know that, I'd be a lot better and I'd cope with stress a lot better if I ate healthy and exercised and got enough sleep every night. But actually doing it is a different story. Being able to plan is huge for that. So if my goal is to eat healthier, then I need to plan ahead and take the time to plan ahead. And it feels like it takes a lot of time, but when you do it, you actually save time for yourself later. And so just being able to plan and I think just small steps, like if I'm going to choose to exercise, if I'm just starting, it's just to walk around the block or walk down the street or do whatever you can do. But those things are going to lead to a healthier lifestyle, but also are going to help you cope with stress better.
I like you said small steps, because I think sometimes we look at everything that we have, we think, okay, well, I'm gonna start meal planning, and I'm gonna get up at 6 o'clock, and I'm gonna go walk my mile, and then I'm gonna come and fix my meal, and then I'm gonna make sure that I'm in bed by 10 o'clock, and that is just more stress, right?
Yes.
If we try and do all of it
Yeah.
at once.
And it's really common. If I just am gonna jump into everything at once, that I'm gonna get frustrated or overwhelmed really quickly and just throw it all out the window.
Right.
So taking small steps is a really good idea.
When we spoke before we were on camera, we talked about a little bit about caregiver fatigue and caregiver burnout and compassion fatigue. Can you explain both of those and the difference between the two of them?
Yeah, so caregiver burnout is, and they're actually really similar. Probably the difference is that compassion fatigue is more related to dealing with somebody else's trauma. So if you're a healthcare worker and you're helping somebody who's going through a traumatic medical experience or a traumatic loss or whatever it is, and you are feeling that trauma yourself. And so they also call it vicarious trauma, but also, and more recently they've kind of used compassion fatigue. And so when we are doing that constantly, you kind of start to withdraw and not be able to take on everything because you're taking on everybody's stuff, right? And so with caregiver burnout, sometimes it's just, every day in, day out I'm a caregiver, and it's the monotony of it, and it's getting harder and harder to do those things. But really the signs and symptoms are similar.
How does COVID impact all of that?
COVID makes such a difference because
Such a swear word, isn't it?
Yes,
It's a
and
5-letter swear word.
It's so hard, and I think the reason it's so hard is because we listened to a similar podcast today of David Kessler and Brene Brown, and just talked about how we are collectively grieving over the loss of our world and everything that we've known. And so these healthcare workers and people in assisted living and nursing homes, as they're caring for these people who are distanced from their families and who are struggling with isolation, but then also trying to keep them safe and making those difficult decisions, they're feeling that same pain that their patients are feeling. And so that makes it so much worse. So they're taking on that and trying to make up the difference because your family's not coming, and we're trying to do all these extra things. And it just is going to cause more caregiver burnout.
Okay. Do you have any stories or examples of something that we can do to help us avoid caregiver burnout so we don't take it home with us to our families?
Yeah. There's actually an example that we give sometimes. It was a story that I heard, and it was a healthcare setting. I'm not even sure what it was. But it was a nurse that would go in to take care of her patients, and she just kept a pebble in her pocket. And when she went in to go see the patient, she would take the pebble out and leave it at the door. And that would signify, like, I'm leaving everything at the door, and I'm just here for you. So one-on-one, like, I'm here, and I'm taking care of you and your needs, and I'm present with you. And then she'd finish there, and then she'd grab the pebble and put it back in her pocket and feel that. And grabbing that pebble is sort of like a grounding of, like, remembering, okay, I'm leaving that behind and what we just did behind, and I'm leaving that at the door, and now I'm going to focus on what I'm doing next. And then she'd go to the next room and leave it at the door. And so really it was a way to decompress from each individual patient that she went and saw, so that she could focus again and be herself again and remind herself of where she's at. We have not been directly exposed to the trauma scene, but we hear the story told with such intensity, or we hear similar stories so often, or we have the gift and curse of extreme empathy, and we suffer. We feel the feelings of our clients, or in this case our patients. We experience their fears, we dream their dreams. Eventually we lose a certain spark of optimism, humor, and hope. We tire, we aren't sick, but we aren't ourselves. And so to me that signifies that compassion fatigue, that we give and give and give and give so much that sometimes there's nothing left to give. And so it's so important that we become resilient with dealing with the stress. And so as you figure out ways to decompress, and we kind of talked about that, like going for walks and exercising or doing whatever it is that you need to do, if you can learn to decompress and leave those things at work with the pebble and leave it there, then you actually can become more resilient and not have that compassion fatigue or burnout, because you are recognizing that that you can leave it alone and come back to it. So
Great, that's really great. So how do we not stress out about being stressed and beat ourselves up? And what are some things, in addition to eating right and getting enough sleep and getting enough exercise, what were some other simple tips that we can do, some things that we can maybe incorporate in our life?
well, I like what you said about not beating ourselves up, because we tend to do that, right? We tend to beat ourselves up. And as we do that, just say, oh, I should be more present with my patients. And I've heard this a lot with caregivers. Oh, I get frustrated, even family caregivers. I get frustrated with my mom because I have to tell her the same thing over and over and over again. And I shouldn't get frustrated. And then there's guilt. And then you feel bad because there's guilt.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the quotes actually I heard on that podcast this morning was, judgment demands punishment. So when we're judging ourselves or judging other people, we think there needs to be punishment. And so we're punishing ourselves. And so the important thing is just be kind to yourself. It's okay to allow yourself to be stressed. I mean, really, stress is a normal reaction that we feel, and we're going to feel it, and make that okay. So allow it, recognize it, and then figure out the best way to cope. So whether for you it's taking a bath at night, or it's watching a short TV. Don't get lost in I'm going to step out and watch 8 hours of Netflix, right?
Right.
But or exercise or whatever it is that works for you. Those things are good, and we just need to experiment with those things and figure out what will work best.
And the same thing doesn't always work all of the time, does it? It's okay to experiment,
Yes.
right? That's
Yeah.
what you said.
Yeah, and I feel like that with me. Sometimes it's that I want to go exercise. Sometimes it's that I want to go on a hike. Other times it's that I just need to relax and take a minute.
And you mentioned something about grounding and that pebble in your pocket. What is grounding?
So grounding is coming back to the present, right? And so a lot of times with stress or anxiety, we're either worried about something that's going to happen or something that's happened in the past, and so we're not in the present. So grounding brings you back to the present. So like an example would be, some people just will name 5 things in the room, and that brings them back to the present and say, okay, I'm right here, and I don't have to worry about other things, but be in the present. Another great example is mindfulness, and just meditation and mindfulness, and even just deep breathing. Because sometimes if you're at work and you work at a healthcare facility and you don't have time to go through a whole session of mindfulness, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you can do the 4 square breathing, where you breathe in for 4 seconds, you hold it for 4 seconds, you breathe out for 4 seconds, and you hold it for 4 seconds. And if you can do that and just relax yourself if you're struggling,
Just
absolutely.
a couple times even.
Yeah,
That's right.
then that will help a lot. And then if you have time, there's actually great apps for mindfulness that you can download on your phone that walk you through some mindfulness, and they bring you back to the present, help you recognize your body, help you recognize what your body's going through. And those things are very healing and very decompressing as you're talking about trying to be resilient amid all the stressful things going on. One of the things that I would say, if you're struggling and you know you're struggling, don't be afraid to talk to somebody. And I just would want to encourage that. Reach out, talk to a coworker, talk to somebody, talk to a boss, and just let them know that you're having a hard time. One of the big things I think that, as you're talking about compassion fatigue, is going back to why did I become a nurse? Why did I become a CNA? And if you can look at that and say, I'm really helping people, and I did this to help people, and I do help people, sometimes that can bring you back to what's important and give you enough energy and courage to keep doing what you're doing and do it in a way that you want to do it.
Well, and even after talking to your boss or your friend or your spouse or whomever, if you're still really struggling, please seek professional help,
Absolutely.
right? Well, Cassie, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule. We really appreciate your knowledge. We really appreciate your information, and we really appreciate you and the positive vibes that you bring, and the great opportunities, great options for just about everybody. There's got to be something for somebody in everything that we can try to help us to make it through this difficult time right now. So thank you.
Oh, yeah, you bet.
Thank you, Kelly and Cassie. We are so lucky to have the opportunity to hear some advice from an individual who both experiences and helps others with managing the same stressors that we are facing every day. Lastly, we are excited to introduce our final guest, as she will help us with practicing mindfulness and positive affirmations.
We are really excited to present some information about meditation and yoga. This is Teresa Cox. She has been interested in meditation and yoga for a long time. She is a certified yoga instructor, and she did teach some classes over at CrossFit for a period of time for us. So thank you, Teresa, for being willing to come and talk to the Tannenbaum employees. Can you tell us a little bit about what meditation is?
Sure. Dr. Deepak Chopra explains it as a progressive quieting of the mind, kind of coming into yourself and coming into the core of your being.
Oh, okay, great.
So can you meditate anywhere you want?
Yes, we can. A lot of people think that you need a rose garden to meditate, a place of zen, a place far off like Troy. But actually, we can meditate any place, and at work is especially a great place to meditate.
So then how is it that we would meditate if we're at work?
Deepak says when we're at work, you might notice that there's a lot of noise going on, or distraction, or you're just feeling flustered and kind of worn down. Well, this is a good time to maybe just stop.
So is that an acronym for something?
Yes, it actually is. So when we stop, the S stands for actually stop. And
So we're just going to stop what we're doing. Okay, so like freeze.
no, just
Okay.
stop, relax, notice what are we feeling inside? Are we tense? Are our hands clenched? Are our jaws clenched? We just feel and notice,
Just kind of recognize what's going on.
recognize what's going on in our physical being.
So that's the S for stop.
Yeah.
Okay, so then what's T? What is T for?
Take 3 breaths.
Mhm.
Oh,
Can you demonstrate that for us?
So when we are standing there, you just want to relax your body. Notice where your shoulders are, your neck, your hands, and feel that. And then we're going to take slow inhales. We'll count to 4. So 3, 4, and hold. 1, 2, and then exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4.
so we inhale for
6.
4, hold for 2, and exhale for 6?
Yes.
Okay, let's do it again.
Okay, let's go ahead and take inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now hold. 2, 3. Then exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we want to do this 3 times, and by doing it 3 times, we're going to slow down. You're going to relax more. You're going to focus more inwardly.
So why 3 times? Just because
Well,
they say 3?
yeah, because at the beginning you're going to be still noticing stuff outside yourself, but as you bring it back in, you're going to notice the breath, you're going to notice the calming, and it just will help center yourself.
Okay, so you need to do it more than once, because once isn't going to be enough.
Correct.
Okay, awesome. So what's the O for?
So the O is for observe the sensations again in your body, and notice the tension, notice your hands. Again, like I say, are they clenching? Are your jaws clenching? A lot of times when we're working, you just start clenching your jaws and your hands and your
Certainly in my
neck
shoulders,
and
right?
your shoulders.
That's
Yeah. So we get to stop, observe that, and by observing, you can allow it to relax and go. Just allow it to go.
Okay,
Okay.
perfect.
So then what does the P stand for to finish it off?
To finish it off, we need to proceed with compassion and awareness for ourselves and all those around us. And so we will take charge of how we feel. And once we do that, we can recharge. We'll have more energy, more compassion for ourselves, number 1, and then we'll have more compassion for those that we're working with.
That's amazing.
So we don't need to sit down and cross our legs and do the old thing.
No, we don't have to be
in the middle of the
Troy.
hall, right? We can
Right,
just
right.
stop where we are, kind of notice what's happening, that we're getting a little bit crazy, take some slow, deep breaths, more than 1,
Mhm.
observe how we're feeling then after that's all done, and then move forward, allowing ourselves to not be perfect, and allowing others to not be perfect, and move forward with grace and compassion. That's
what we're all gonna do?
Very well said, yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, okay, thank you for those tips on meditation. Do you have a minute? Could you show us a couple of yoga stretches that we could maybe do at home with some positive affirmations? Maybe someone who's young and fit and someone who's not quite as young and not quite as fit, we could both do, all of us could do?
Okay, sure. I think we could start out with a couple of chairs. So a lot of times when we're just sitting, maybe we're watching TV, we think we're going to relax, or we're listening to music, we can go ahead and sit on either the couch or a chair. And the best move I find is just reaching our hands up over our heads, squeezing our shoulders, reaching up towards, keeping our,
So we
unlock and reach our fingertips up to the sky. Go
Okay.
ahead and bring them back as far to our ears as we can. And we hold this. The longer we can hold, the better. We can take 2 or 3 deep breaths. Let's go ahead.
So are our palms facing in or are our palms facing forward?
I like to face them in.
Okay,
And you can wiggle your fingertips
Okay,
as
and
you're
then-
breathing.
big breaths.
And take 3 deep breaths. Count to 4, and then go ahead and release. 1, 2, 3, 4. Go ahead and breathe in again, maybe bring them further back. While you're breathing, you can go ahead and think of, I'm a good caregiver. I find joy in helping others. What I do matters. I am needed in my workplace. I make a difference in others' lives. And you can go ahead and grab one of your wrists with your opposite hand and pull and lean over to the side, maybe to the left side, and go ahead and stretch that. And as
Oh,
you're
that
doing
feels
that,
good.
breathe in, I'm good enough. Stretch and hold it. Then go ahead and come back to the center, wiggle your fingertips, release your wrist. And bring it back down slowly. And rest your hands on your legs. And just feel that. And you'll notice it was tight. Go ahead and bring your head over to your left shoulder, your ear.
Oh, that feels really good too.
And each time you do a movement, you just go ahead and breathe in and out.
And think something positive,
Think
like.
positive. I am
I'm
a
a
good
good-
caregiver.
Yeah.
I do enjoy working with others. I find joy in working with those around me. Go ahead and bring your head up. So let's go ahead. I think my favorite and all-time favorite, probably one of the best moves anyone, and it seems very simple, is just bring your legs out in front of each other and sit up tall in the core. And we're gonna go ahead, raise your arms up. And you're gonna go ahead and fold over your legs. And you know, sometimes if we're really tight in hamstrings, we lift our knees. It's okay, you can bend your knees, or you can flatten them wherever you are, it doesn't matter. And generally, I like to do, hold this position 3 to 5 minutes. I know it seems like a long time, but with each breath, you're only gonna be able to stretch as full, it does the full body back stretch, which everyone needs from sitting in their chairs, bent over all the time. We need to stretch the back side. And so if you can get, you know, if you're at 1 minute, fine, each day. It is good to do every day, and it's such a simple stretch. You can be watching TV, but best, just hold it and breathe. Remember to breathe, and where you're feeling tight, bring that breath to that place where it's tight. And with each breath, again, we can go ahead and say the mantras are, we matter at work, people enjoy my work, you can sit down.
no.
I find joy in helping others.
People do enjoy our work, that's good, I think that's
Yeah.
okay to say.
Okay.
That's a good thing.
I'm needed in my workplace.
I make a difference to people. I'm good enough.
And with each breath and with each positive affirmation, if you notice your body, it'll start to soften. It won't,
Be as tense and hard.
yeah, it doesn't resist as much. Reach your hands up and wiggle your fingers. Wiggle your feet, your ankles, your toes.
Okay, have you got one more for us?
One more. Another one I like to do is bring your right leg over the left leg. This is great for your
Oh, yeah.
digestive.
This is great.
For your back.
This is
So you just,
for my back,
and you pull it up, it's gonna do your whole
side,
backside.
fanny and.
And you can even wrap your arm around and take a deep breath and twist. And like that over your shoulder. And at the same time, we think positive thoughts with each breath.
I am becoming more healthy.
I am becoming more healthy. How about this? I am healthy. Okay, so we can hold this. I think I would stay here for a long time, but let's go ahead and turn back and bring the left leg over and wrap your arm around and go ahead and twist with a deep breath. And always notice your breath. Notice where you're tight and breathe. Bring the breath to that point and allow that to relax. Make even a slow breathing. Lengthen your spine. And bring it back. And shake your legs out.
That's awesome.
Yeah, even just
Feels really
doing
good.
2, maybe 3 poses a day, it will just re-energize you, loosen you up, and bring you to focus on. When we focus on and take care of ourselves, we're much better to take care of others.
Great. Thank you so much for your wisdom and your experience and for spending some time with us. We really appreciate all the counsel and advice that you've given us.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was great. I feel so much better already.
Well,
Yeah.
good, and thanks for coming out and doing a little yoga.
Namaste.
I'm really looking forward to adding these practices of mindfulness and positive affirmations to my daily life. I hope that each of you will also practice these skills and experience the benefits that they will bring you. We appreciate you taking the time to watch this month's episode of TBWP 21. As always, we encourage you to take the quiz that is associated with this video in order to receive this month's wellness prize. Thanks for watching, and we hope you will practice and improve your mental and emotional wellness this month.